The 2026 MotoGP test, Sepang and Jerez, saw us testing everywhere. The 2026 MotoGP test, Sepang and Jerez, saw us testing everywhere. After the first round in Thailand, the MotoGP calendar offers a brief respite before heading to Brazil at the Ayrton Senna circuit in Goiânia next week. But there's no downtime, and at least 4 of the 5 manufacturers involved are testing new things, both at Sepang and Jerez. At least some information has been released. As for Sepang, the first test of the 2027 Honda RC214V with its 850cc engine took place in mid-December, with the test team and Takaaki Nakagami. Don't ask us why Honda waited 3 months, and another test run in January, to release a short 28-second video. However, on this model, we can see that the first test was definitely carried out with the 850cc engine installed in the 2026 chassis, as evidenced by all the aerodynamic enhancements that were no longer regulated on the 2027. The fairing wings are too wide, the seat wing is too high. The only visible difference is the rear exhaust, which looks thinner and longer than on the 1000cc model. Compare the photo of Takaaki Nakagami with the photo of Johann Zarco below. Despite the seemingly unfavorable weather conditions, rain tires, the Japanese rider was asked about his first impressions, and he emphasized lightness, a concept that can be linked to weight and handling. "My first impression was very light. I was a bit surprised considering the conditions. It's quite good," said the Chiba native. A newer prototype is expected to be seen in Europe, during official testing in Barcelona in 2020. April 27, this time in the hands of Alex Espargaro. For Jerez, we're no longer talking about the past but the present, as Aprilia, Ducati, KTM, and Yamaha are expected to be there this week for a 3-day private test. We don't yet know who will ride which bikes, but for Noel the choice should fall on Lorenzo Savadori alone. Michel Pirro on the Borgo Panigale, and for Mattighofen on Pol Espargaro and Dani Pedrosa. Meanwhile, at Yamaha, due to its ranking in the concessionary D category, there are plenty of interesting choices between Fabio Quartararo, Alex Rins, Jack Miller, Toprak Razgatlioglu, Augusto Fernandez, and Andrea Dovizioso. All riders have Pirelli tires at their disposal, in addition to their usual Michelins. Lorenzo Savadori, who was at the Andalusian track last Monday and Tuesday, was able to take advantage of the excellent track conditions, riding 2026 RSGP. To date, there is no indication that Aprilia has run its 2027 prototype. On Wednesday and Thursday, the situation was generally the same for Ducati, which relied on the mid-April Misano test to launch its 2027 model, and is currently focusing on its GP26, which failed to reach the podium in Thailand. However, Michel Pirro's message remained cryptic. There's a lot of work to do now and in the future. "2026 Jerez MotoGP Private Test. Toprak heads to Spain for MotoGP test with Michelin and Pirelli tires." Yamaha, KTM, and Aprilia gathered in Jerez for a private MotoGP test featuring Michelin and Pirelli tires, with Toprak Razgatlioglu also participating. Toprak Razgatlioglu will gain additional MotoGP experience this week as Yamaha, KTM, and Aprilia gather in Jerez for a 2-day private test. Interestingly, the test, scheduled for Wednesday and Thursday in Jerez, is scheduled to use Michelin and Pirelli tires. This opens up the possibility of developments for both the current 1000cc MotoGP bike and the future 850cc bike. Yamaha, KTM, and Aprilia will be present at the test, with test riders Andrea Dovizioso, Pol Espargaro, and Lorenzo Savadori each confirming their presence at Jerez via social media. A video from Savadori shows the long, slim exhaust on the RSGP. KTM became the first MotoGP manufacturer to publicly test an 850cc bike at Jerez in December, with Pol Espargaro and Dani Pedrosa. Furthermore, Mika Kallio reportedly did some laps with the prototype at the Sepang test. Honda and Yamaha are also believed to have completed some early 850cc testing behind closed doors, while Aprilia and Ducati are targeting a spring debut. Yamaha's concession status allows them to field a full-time rider for private testing, and Razgatlioglu appears likely to join, having announced that he is traveling from Turkey to Spain. The reigning World SBK champion finished 20th and 17th in the season-opening race in Thailand, but set a pace comparable to the other Yamaha V4 riders who struggled throughout the middle of the Grand Prix. This will be his first opportunity to ride a MotoGP bike on Pirelli, the tires that have brought him so much success in World SBK. It remains unclear whether Pramac teammate Jack Miller or Yamaha factory riders Fabio Quartararo and Alex Rins will be present. Similarly, Ducati test rider Michel Pirot is also present in riding the 2027 bike. And Honda test rider Alex Espargaro will also be present. The second round of the 2026 MotoGP World Championship takes place in Goiânia, Brazil, from March 20 to 22. The season doesn't enter its European leg until the fourth round in Qatar, although that event in the Middle East is now in doubt. Meanwhile, Jerez is scheduled to host the opening European race weekend of the year, from April 24 to 26. Pedro Acosta's racing style, said to be similar to Valentino Rossi, ready to beat Marquez, 2026 MotoGP champion. Neil Hodgson was amazed by the quality of Red Bull KTM rider Pedro Acosta. He believes Pedro Acosta shares a similar riding style to seven-time Premier Class champion Valentino Rossi. Pedro Acosta's brilliant performance in the 2026 MotoGP opening race. Besides Ducati, Aprilia Racing is being touted as a team with a chance to win the 2026 MotoGP. However, Pedro Acosta has shown he can compete, despite not riding for a satellite team as prestigious as Ducati and Aprilia. In the opening race of the 2026 MotoGP, which took place at the Buriram circuit, Thailand, Pedro Acosta put on a brilliant performance. In the final sprint session of the 2026 Thailand MotoGP, Pedro Acosta finished top, after a fierce duel with Marc Marquez, Ducati Lenovo. Then, in the main race of the 2026 Thailand MotoGP, Pedro Acosta finished second behind Marco Bezzecchi, Aprilia Racing. As a result, Pedro Acosta temporarily tops the 2026 Thailand MotoGP standings with 32 points, 7 points ahead of Marco Bezzecchi in second place. He's tied with Valentino Rossi. Neil Hodgson is amazed that Pedro Acosta hasn't crashed at all in the 2026 Thailand MotoGP. If he can maintain this consistent result, Pedro Acosta is a strong contender for the 2026 Thailand MotoGP Championship. Pedro Acosta hasn't had a single crash this year. I certainly don't want to jinx it, but that's the magic of racing, feeling the front tire, or rather, feeling its limits, said Neil Hodgson. Watching Pedro Acosta yesterday, you could clearly see he's capable of doing that. People often ask me, what makes Valentino Rossi so great? And I say, it's the feeling he has with the front tire. He's truly capable of living on the limit. He can do 25 laps right on the limit, Neil Hodgson stated. Next, Pedro Acosta and the other riders will compete in the second race of the 2026 MotoGP. The second race, titled MotoGP Brazil 2026, will be held on Monday, March 23, 2026, in the early hours of Western Indonesian time.